was lost without God, he had chaos in his life. When he found God, he had chaos in his life. It multiplied when he started serving the Lord. You say, why is everything got to happen so bad to people that's trying to do so good? Because we live in a chaotic world. And chaos is going to follow those that are trying to do good. Let's stand to our feet as we read Acts chapter 27 and verse 25. Well, wherefore, sirs, be of good cheer. And I want you to look at this. For I believe God, that it shall be even as it was told to me. And you can be seated. Brother Tom, I don't know exactly where all this is going, but I'll promise you it's probably not going to hit anywhere where I sent you. We're going to be in that same verse, but we may be going a different direction than whatever the Lord has given me right now. Paul says, be of good cheer. What's that mean, Brother Raymond? What it means is, no matter how old or how young you are, be of good cheer. For I believe God. Paul, during his time of serving God, was persecuted more than he had good days. He was in prison and in bonds more than he was out doing the work of the Lord. Sitting in prison at times, praying for those on the outside to continue their work for the Lord. A majority of his letters came while he was sitting inside a prison cell, being incarcerated because he believed God. He talked about God. He worshiped God. He served God. And what we need to understand is just because we give our hearts and lives to God doesn't mean that everything's going to be fine. It just means it's going to get a little more chaotic. Now, anybody here like chaos? Anybody? Oh, come on now. You sure you guys don't like chaos? I mean, you sure that when you see blue lights going round and round, that you're not just a little bit inquisitive of what's going on there? Me and my wife went to, Friday night, we went to clean our evening. We clean it once a month, Houston's trucking service out on 641. And as we passed the apartments there on the left going out of Paris, there was several police cars inside this complex with their lights on. And the first thing, we both said it simultaneously, wonder what's going on there. You say, well, Brother Raymond, isn't that a little different? No, we are all looking at chaos. Sometimes we even question it. Sometimes we are so inquisitive of what is going on with other people that we are not even concerned, I'm getting ready, you guys get ready for this, about ourselves. We're so easy to point at others while not paying attention to ourselves. Did you know society has created that atmosphere? Do you know that me and my wife, we get into Cops. We like to watch Cops and 48 Hours. You guys watch the 40, we watch and we're following, trying to piece everything together, that kind of stuff. We get inquisitive about that kind of thing. That's reality. That's not made up stuff. That is just out and out reality. Now, guys, I want you to ask yourself this question right here where you're sitting at this morning. What's going on in my life that would be considered chaotic? Boy, I see a lot of eyeballs moving now. What is going on in my life today that would seem to be chaotic? No, it may not be newsworthy. No, it may not be a story to be let out in the newspaper, but it does upset my life. It's creating me not to be normal. I'm looking in this class, and I call it a class. There's a lot of not normal people. I'm one of them. I'm the senior abnormal. That's the reason why I'm teaching the class. A lot of things going on in you guys' hearts and minds right now that just seems to be a little chaotic. Maybe chaotic to the point that it just doesn't allow us to be as happy as we'd like to be. Have you ever been put in a situation that just seems like it never goes away? Hello? Every time you wake up in the morning, it's like, boom, there it is. Out of the mouth of babes. A little chaotic. Paul met with chaos, turmoil, and persecution ever since he started serving God. Turmoil. You mean God allowed Paul, after committing himself to God, he allowed Paul to go through chaos and turmoil? Yes. Why? Because he believed God. You mean, Brother Raymond, if I believe God, then I'm going to go through chaos and turmoil and persecution? Yes. Doesn't that sound fun? Doesn't it sound like it's just something, boy, I wake up every morning just thinking to myself, what kind of chaos, turmoil, and persecution am I going to get today? Sometimes I catch myself making a list. Yep, that's going to happen. Yep, that's going to happen. Yep, this has already happened. Hello? It's almost like we are anticipating something to happen. Anybody in here ever had a perfect day? If you tell me you have, you're lying. There ain't nobody had a perfect day, right? Paul, from the get-go, didn't have a perfect day. Can you imagine sitting in prison and you still feel good enough to talk about God? You still feel good enough to write a letter to a church to tell them what they need to be doing for God? Hello? When you're having a bad day, are you thinking about others? Who are you thinking about? You're having a bad day. You're thinking about you. You got you on the mind. You think, oh, whoa, guys, we wake up and I'll guarantee you sometime during the day, you are going to have a pity party. You are going to, oh, here we go again. Brother Dustin over here works for the cabinet shop, cabinet corner there in Paris, and I'm sure he has a perfect day every time he goes out and puts in cabinets. Because they're made just exactly the way they were supposed to be made. Everything was measured just exactly the way they were supposed to be measured. Everything was cut exactly to the measurement that they was cut to. And everything was just going to, if it was a perfect day, it would be one of those things you just sling up, walk out. But it don't happen that way. For your measuring tape does not measure how many humps are in the wall or how far square out the corner was or something that we may have missed with that measuring tape that we just seem to forgot to measure. And there isn't no such thing as a cabinet stretcher. See? We never know what we run into every single day of our lives. Chaos always seems to show up. You name it, Paul experienced it in the 27th chapter of Acts. In spite of all of Paul's experience, Paul had confidence in the Lord. He says, be of good cheer. While sitting in a prison cell, he says, be of good cheer. There's many things that would be running through my mind if I was incarcerated, and being of good cheer wouldn't be one of them. Right? For I have worked in a prison system, and I can tell you by fact that I would not like the food that is cooked there, because I'll tell you the reason why. In the state of Tennessee, there is one area out of the whole state of Tennessee that cooks meals for all of the prison systems in their district. They have a certain amount of prisons that they cook for, and there's 3 different divisions, and every one of those places they'll cook it in one spot and deliver it around to the rest of the prisons. By the time it's been cooked, recooked, 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 and recooked, how wonderful it must taste whenever you eat it. I can say for a fact, in Paul's time, there probably wasn't much food given to those that were sitting in prison, let alone much water that was given to them. For they made sure their prisoners didn't feel comfortable inside the gate. Right? Chaos was all around Paul, and Paul had the audacity to say, be of good cheer. Be of good cheer. Be of good cheer. Can you imagine just the guards of that prison hearing Paul say, be of good cheer, while in shackles and chains? Be of good cheer. It's dark, gloomy. There's no light. There's no electricity in Paul's time. There's nobody sitting there with a fan blowing on him in the heat of the day. Be of good cheer. And then he follows it up with one of the best statements I have read in this chapter. And it says, for I believe God. No wonder he's of good cheer. Because he believes in the very person that is keeping him alive, that is helping him through the chaos. If you'll read on in that story, you're going to notice that the angel of the Lord came and visited Paul while there. Not only is God standing there with us, he is in it with us. He's in the moment. He has never left us. He's never walked away. He has always been right there, even in the time of chaos. And chaos is the time we need him the most. Chaos is the time that Jesus is always with us. My first point is the sustaining presence of God. Look at verse 23 of that chapter. For there stood by me this night the angel of God, whose I am, and whom I serve. God didn't just stand by him, but he let him know he was there. Has God ever let you know he's there? Think about that. Think about God takes His time to just let you know He's there. He hadn't went anywhere. Did you know God has not left this world? Did you know that God is still working His plan out in this world? Did you know that God's authority and power is still present in this world? He hadn't went anywhere. He hadn't thrown us by the wayside. Paul sitting in prison, he did not abandon Paul. He even showed Paul he was still there. And listen, guys, in time of chaos, God will show up and let you know He's still there. He hadn't went anywhere. Those of you that has dealt with diseases like cancer and heart problems and diabetic and all, listen, guys, God hasn't went anywhere. He's still there. He's still there to help you in time of need. You can look right back there to Brother Tom, and Brother Tom will tell you, I have not hit anywhere yet where this outline is. God never abandoned Paul. He never left. Psalms chapter 34 and verse 7, this is one of the scriptures I had. The angel of the Lord encampeth round about them that fear Him and delivereth them. The angel of the Lord, the angel of God, appeared many times through the scriptures to His people to let them know that God was still there. I am so glad for the angels encamping all around about me. I'm so glad for the protection of God. I know that I may lose everything physically, but I'll never lose my spiritual connection with God. I'll always have God. When I accepted Jesus Christ as my personal Savior, that meant He's riding with me the rest of the time. He never bails out. I've had some friends that's bailed out down through the years. Or should I say, I thought were friends. Matter of fact, I had one friend that every time we went out to eat seemed to bail out before everything was paid for. Have you ever had those kind of friends? Or they'll come up and say, I forgot my wallet. Yeah. Thought I'd throw that out. I've had a lot of friends that has bailed out on me when it's come hard to be a friend. But the one friend that's never bailed out on me is God. Amen. God has never bailed out. When times has been rough because of my choosing, God has never bailed out. He's always been there. Now I'm looking at some faces right now, and I can see in their eyes that they're thinking about the times that they have been in some bad situations, having some bad things happen to them, and not knowing how in the world they'd ever get through it. But God went through it with them. You know, God doesn't stand on one side or the other of the problem. He stands in the midst of the problem and helps you take care of it. Isn't that awesome? Isn't that an awesome God that we serve? Abraham was about to sacrifice Isaac, and the angel of the Lord showed up. Gideon, when they were under siege from the Midianite, the angel of the Lord showed up. Elijah, when he was running from Jezebel, the angel of the Lord showed up. When Joseph needed to take the body of Jesus out of the danger from Herod, the angel of the Lord showed up to deliver the apostles out from prison and to deliver Peter out from all of the chaotic mess that he was in. God helped them out by sending an angel. to deliver a message. Say, Brother Raymond, have I ever been delivered? Let's talk about Daniel. Let's talk about the 3 Hebrew children. Let's talk about the Israelite people. Let's talk about Moses. Let's talk about Job. Let's talk about those that were in a chaotic time, having a chaotic thing happen to them. And the angel of the Lord brought peace to their soul. Peace. A peace that passes all understanding. You want to know why we can't understand the love of God? Is because we can't love like God. I can't love like God. Oh, I can try. I can do my very best, but there is some people out there that tests my stretch of love. Hallelujah. Sometimes you would just love to slap them. Is that showing some love? Sometimes you'd... Shane was up here going... Sometimes wouldn't you just like to shake the love in them? Listen! Our wives are going, yeah. Listen. Hey, God knows everything about us. There's nothing. There's a phrase that I always use. Has it ever occurred to you, nothing ever occurs to God? God already knows it's happening. God already knows it's there. He knows your problem before you face it. You guys ain't getting it yet. He knows your chaos before you experience it. Your sadness, He knows before you have it. And He already builds up a way to escape it. He says, every temptation you have, I will give you a way out. There has been some places that I have been in that I have looked for a back door out. Have you guys ever been there? I can tell this story because up in East Tennessee, way up in the mountains, is a little Baptist church that's way up in there. When we sung there one time, I'll never forget it. And now they packed that church out. This was back in the 80s, late 80s. Packed this church out. I'm not going to give the name of it. But as we was there setting up the equipment, there was a couple of men that were bringing out some boxes about yay long, yay tall, yay wide. Wooden boxes that had tops on them with holes drilled out in the centers. They brought out 4 of them and stretched them out across the altar. I thought maybe that was a new way of taking up offering. Maybe just come up and drop the money in the hole, everything's good. We got through about the second song. One of the men that brought the boxes in lifted the lid off of one and pulled out a rattlesnake right next to me. Now, I'm not scared of snakes as long as I have the upper hand and an access door. The access door was on the other side of the snake. See where I'm going at? So then I starts looking for a window if there's anything behind me to get out. Then the other man on the other end opened up his box and pulled out his snake. And it was longer than the one over here. There was 2 more boxes in front of me that nobody had gotten to yet, that I thought if it went from smaller to greater, we in trouble when it comes to those 2. They may be humongous. The one that he pulled out over here, don't you say a word, Carlton, was taller than I was. Long. And let me tell you something, this guy had him by the neck, taking his hand and slapping him like that. I'm thinking, there's nowhere in my Bible that reads anything about having snakes to worship God. Now, don't get me wrong. There has been some snakes that has sit inside some auditoriums, but they wasn't regular snakes. They was human snakes. Hello? About the 4th song, they started on that 3rd box over by the bass singer. And I told Hamill he was going into a trio. I'm out of here. I moved my way down the side wall, and I was scraping the side wall. And as I was scraping the side wall, this guy kept following me with that snake. As if he wants me to slap it. I wanted a gun. I wanted to kill it. You say, Brother Raymond, did that create a lot of confusion? Oh yeah, I wasn't thinking of nothing about God. I was thinking all about that snake, and if that guy dropped it after slapping it so many times, I'm in trouble. These little legs might be little, but they can move. And I moved. You say, Brother Raymond, why do you tell that story? Because listen, there's a lot of times in our lives, even sitting inside an auditorium just like you're sitting this morning, and that old tempter, the snake, is being toyed with, played with, as if it has no power. And I want to tell you something. Satan has power. Amen. The Lord allows him to have it, and the Lord allows him to use it so that we can be subjective to the Lord. Paul was in a chaotic place, and I'm going to have to close. It's getting close. Paul was in a chaotic place. Paul testified later of God's constant, sustaining presence in 2 Timothy chapter 4, verses 16 and 17. At my first answer, no man stood with me, but all men forsook me. I pray, God, that it may not be laid to their charge. Notwithstanding, the Lord stood with me and strengthened me, that by me the preaching might be fully known, and that all the Gentiles might hear, and I was delivered out of the mouth of the lion. Paul had confidence in his chaos. Because he started out that verse by saying, be of good cheer. In other words, be happy. And then that phrase that follows, for I believe God. Man, every Christian that has Jesus Christ in their heart ought to be leaping for joy right now because they believe God. God! Something this world needs is God in the time of chaos. Inflation, gas prices, wages, looking at recession, stock markets up and down, other countries battling war against each other, churches fighting amongst each other, preachers falling like flies because of falling into the temptation of God or of the devil. And all we're thinking about to ourselves is, glad it's not happening here. It very well could if we're not being watchful, sober, vigilant. I've seen men that I have idolized as far as ministers for years fall under the temptation of the devil. Giving in and ruining their testimony because they just couldn't fight against the flesh. Folks, what kind of chaos is going on in your life today? Let's stand. The only way to find confidence in that chaos is believing God. Making sure God is there. You say, Brother Raymond, that was such an enlightening sermon. That was such a sermon. There were some things in there that really jumped out at me. Brother Raymond, that was so good. Now let me go back to my chaotic world. When I leave here, I'll join right back into my chaos. Guys, I'm going to give you a news flash. If you aren't serving God, the chaos is going to look a lot worse than what it actually is. Because chaos is always going to be there. Chaos is always going to happen. Turmoil, persecution is always going to be there. But if you don't believe God, it's going to be a whole lot worse. Well, Brother Raymond, I come to church on Sunday morning. That's awesome, guys. I mean, really, it is. But what are you doing the rest of the time? Where's God at in your life the rest of the time? Are you giving yourself an excuse of why not to? Are you just deciding that there's no possible way that God can take care of you in this turmoil type of time and that you just got to be smart? You got to do the right thing. Well, can I tell you this? The right thing is serving God. The right thing is doing what God asked you to do. And if you do what God asks you to do, don't you believe just for a second that He will take care of you? He promises He would. He promises that He'll always be there. Have you surrendered all as this song is playing? Have you surrendered all, or are you just giving what you feel like you're able to? God created everything around you. Don't you think He can't take care of it? Hello? He's took care of it before we were here. He can take care of it now. All you have to do is say, be of good cheer. I believe God. Everybody say this. Be of good cheer. For I believe God. Be of good cheer. For I believe God. Do you believe that tonight? Do you believe it today? That you believe God? Do you believe that God can? Then let Him. Let God do it. Quit thinking that God can't take care of you. Because He can. He has. He will. He'll never stop. He'll always be who He says He will be. He's always the same as He was yesterday, as He is today, and as He will be forever. God never changes. We do. Are you surrendering all today? You hear the music? The invitation is open. Maybe there's something chaotic going in your life today. Maybe it's just the chaos that's going on around about you as you hear every single day in social media and on the news. Maybe it's time